Okay, so looking at number 33, we have y equals negative square root of 1 minus x. All right, so the first thing you have to notice on this problem, right from the beginning, we know that when the square root is inserted for us, that is a principal square root. So this part right here is always positive, which means since we were multiplying it by a negative, the y value has to be negative in this problem. So we can only plot points for this graph when y is a negative value. So we start by squaring both sides. When we square both sides, we get y squared equals, well, this is just going to be 1 minus x, because you have negative square root of 1 minus x times negative square root of 1 minus x. The negatives cancel out. Square root of 1 minus x times square root of 1 minus x is just 1 minus x. And so that means our vertex is going to be, well, there's we solve this for x, and so it's going to be x minus 1 equals negative y squared. And so our vertex is going to be 1 comma 0, because we got it solved for our x term. There's nothing with the y term, and so we don't need to complete the square or anything. And so it's just 1 comma 0. We put 1 in for x, you can see that y is going to equal 0. So that's our vertex right here. Now note that point is actually not a part of our graph, because remember we said, no, it can't be a part of our graph, because the y value needs to be negative, but it could also be 0 with that negative. And then this is a parabola that opens left to right. And since it's a negative y squared, that means it opens left. It opens to the left and not to the right. And so you could look at some points around this. And so if instead we plug in, instead of 0 for y, what if we plug in 1 for y, or actually in this case, negative 1? That's going to give us x minus 1 equals a negative 1 squared. And so that's going to give us x equals 0. And so that's going to be this point here. If we let y equal negative 2, then we're going to get x is negative 3, and so on and so forth. And so my graph is just going to look like this. But it stops and is only this bottom part, because it can only be the part where y is negative, which is the part that is below the x-axis. And so the graph of this is, it's essentially a half parabola that has a vertex at 1 comma 0.